Hi, and welcome to another week at TWI Sports. I'm your host, Calder Hodge. TWI stands for This Week in Sports, and we created the show for all you sports fanatics that, just like me, are craving and missing sports. So let's get started and see what happened this week in sports. On June 13th, 1895, Émile Levasseur won the very first automobile race in history. It was called the Paris-Bordeaux-Paris race because it went from Paris to Bordeaux and then back to Paris. Duh! It took Levasseur 48 hours and 48 minutes to drive the 732-mile-long course. Levasseur was so fast that he reached Bordeaux several hours earlier than anyone expected him to. So his driving companion, who was supposed to drive back to Paris, was asleep in a hotel and no one could find him. Levasseur drove himself back at 2:30 in the morning and won almost 6 hours before anyone else arrived back in Paris. Also a first, this time in the world of soccer, it was June 13th in 1956, the very first European Cup Finals was played in Paris. Hector Rail of Real Madrid scored twice to help his team beat Stade Reims 4-3. 38,239 people attended this game. On June 14th, 1974, Nolan Ryan, or the Ryan Express as he was known, struck out 19 Red Sox over 12 innings while playing for the California Angels. He threw 235 pitches that game, walked 10 batters, and still ended up getting a no decision. These 19 strikeouts contributed to Ryan's 5,714 total strikeouts over his career. Also on June 14th, the New York Rangers won their first Stanley Cup in 54 years with the 3-2 win in Game 7 over the Vancouver Canucks at Madison Square Garden. The MVP was Brian Leetch, who is often referred to as the greatest Ranger of all time. On June 15, 2019, a baseball jersey from the 1928-1930 season belonged to Babe Ruth went up for auction in New York and was sold for a record $5.64 million. This broke the previous record for the most expensive sports memorabilia item ever sold at auction, also a Babe Ruth jersey from the 1920 season. On June 16, 1996, the 50th NBA championship was played between the Chicago Bulls and the Seattle Supersonics. Chicago won their first of a three-peat championships that year, beating the Sonics in 6 games, 4-2. The Bulls had only lost 10 games of their 82-game season that year. They were led by Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman, and their captain and Finals MVP, Michael Jordan. June 17, 1976 was a big day for basketball. 4 teams in the old ABA, the American Basketball Association, the Denver Nuggets, the Indiana Pacers, the New York Nets, and the San Antonio Spurs each paid the NBA $3.2 million to merge into the league. The ABA was formed in 1967 and lasted until 1976 when these 4 teams joined the NBA. The ABA itself was a flashier form of basketball with multicolored balls and a high-flying antics, but some of its game pieces, like the three-point shot and the dunk contest, have also been merged into the NBA. On June 18, 1960, at the 60th Men's U.S. Open Golf Tournament at Cherry Hills Country Club in Inglewood, Colorado, Arnold Palmer staged the greatest comeback in tournament history. He erased a 7-stroke final round deficit to win his only U.S. Open title by 2 strokes ahead of Jack Nicklaus. And now for something y'all may have never heard of, the Steagles. The Pennsylvania Steagles, as they were affectionately called, was the merger of the Philadelphia Eagles and the Pittsburgh Steelers, which happened on June 19, 1943. These 2 teams were forced to merge due to the loss of players who had signed up to fight in World War II. The teams consisted of some unusually but talented players, like guard Ed Michaels, who was nearly deaf, another starting defensive end who was blind in one eye, and the coaches of both teams were deemed co-coaches because both refused to be demoted, and unfortunately, these 2 men hated each other. The Steagles ended their one and only football season 5-4-1. I love this football trivia. Lastly, here at This Week in Sports, we are giving our weekly birthday wishes to Dirk Nowitzki. The power forward of the Dallas Mavericks, born June 19, 1978. Dirk was an NBA Finals MVP of 2011, NBA MVP of 2007, and a 14-time All-Star. Born in Würzburg, West Germany, we wish a very happy 42nd birthday to Dirk Nowitzki. Well, that's all for today. If you love sports, especially sports trivia, look no further than This Week in Sports right here on OnlyGood TV. I'm Calder Hodge. See you next time.